Hello and welcome back to my channel. It is the end of 2022. Can you believe it? I am shocked that the year, it felt so long and also so short at the same time. But book-wise, it felt really short. There are books that I read in 2021 that I was like, surely that was this year, and it wasn't. I want to share with you my top, how many did I have? I think I did 10. Top 12. My top 12 books of 2022. I, in total, read 75, almost 76 books this year. I'm gonna have to leave in a second because my Uber Eats is on its way. That's one of the perks of being in a house. We can order Uber Eats. As I was trying to figure out my top 12, I was actually surprised at how, I don't know, like how diverse they were. I expected them to all be in the fantasy genre, but there's a lot of different genres and different styles, so I'm excited to share them with you. Officially, oh my god, my Uber Eats is here. Okay. I got Thai food. We're in Orlando, which is where I'm from and where we lived for like 3 years before moving into the van. I got Thai from my favorite Thai place here. Of course I got pad Thai because I'm basic. I wanna look at it. And then, you know, eat like a rangoon. Oh, they switched their, oh, I didn't grab chopsticks. Probably because I didn't ask him to. That's okay. I'm just gonna eat one and then we're gonna continue on. It's so good. Be right back. Sorry. I don't have these books in any particular order. I think I kind of grouped them by type. Yeah, I kind of grouped them by type, actually, looking at it now. But it is a mix of audio and like written. So I'll tell you if I read it either like with my eyes or with my ears. I don't know how to better say that. It's all reading. I feel like we all know this, but just to say it, it's all reading. Starting out, Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. It's on everyone's list for a reason. Let's be real. Like, it follows a story of 3 friends who end up, well, I guess kind of 2 friends, play video games together. And though I think what is so compelling about the story isn't just that it is so well written, but what it does describe really well is the tensions and growing apart of friendship and grief. It's a coming of age story that includes video games, which I don't think is often told. I myself don't game, and I found it incredibly compelling of how do we handle pain and grief, even chronic pain for one of the characters? How does escapism play into that, and how do our own perceptions of ourselves differ from how other people might perceive us? It switches POVs throughout the main characters and even throws in some different POVs, which adds really interesting artistic elements. Again, it's on everyone's list for a reason, so definitely read it if you haven't yet. I did listen to it and the audiobook was incredibly good. My next favorite, again, so on this list too, I have series. The series is one. It's one story, so you get one slot, and I read all the series for most. So this next one is An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by, I almost said John Green, by Hank Green. I put this with Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow because they are very similar books, and if you like Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, you will love these titles, my god. You will love An Absolutely Remarkable Thing. It follows a story of, again, these friends that come together over trying to solve the mysterious appearance of these kind of like extraterrestrial seeming figures. The thing that I appreciated most about it, it's one of the books that really interwove social media and YouTube, the idea of influencership and content creation in ways that I hadn't seen very well or even accurately portrayed in other books. I feel like it brought up a lot of questions of, again, how far is too far with technology, and technology as a tool for good and for evil, and exploring both sides of that. Hank Green is obviously an incredibly smart guy. I listened again to the audiobook of this and the second one. They were both equally as good. Shifting from this area, we're moving into kind of the more fantasy genre. Everyone told me that I would love this book, that I would devour it. My favorite book is The Name of the Wind, and everyone's like, if you love that book, you will love this series. And that is The Way of the Kings by Brandon Sanderson, the first of the Stormlight Archives. I have only read the first one so far, and this easily makes my favorite list. It reminded me so much of Lord of the Rings, and how the pacing is slow, so you appreciate the journey and the unfolding of everything. The world building is complex, my goodness. It was so well done that every time I returned to the book, it wasn't like, oh, who is that? Like, what are these names? I remembered exactly who the gods were. I remembered exactly what the lineage and hierarchies were, that I could return to it no matter what. And it took me over a year to read because it was so slow, but my goodness, is it worth it. And I don't think that's a book that you need to devour in one sitting, or even in a fast-paced sitting. I think it is the type of book that you can return to and slowly chew on. And so I'm really excited to have the other two books to be like that too. Did I tell you what it was about? No. I don't know how to summarize it. The next. I feel torn about this being on my top, but it was just such a fun read. It's not for everyone. If you like a fantasy romance that has a hint of darkness to it and adventure, it's cliffhangers every chapter, The Kingdom of the Wicked is such a fun book for it. I would highly recommend it if you are trying to get back into reading or get out of a book slump. The next one, I listened to the audio version. I normally don't gravitate toward this type of book, but it was recommended by someone who I trusted, so I decided to give it a go. And it's called The Dictionary of Lost Words. It's a historical fiction that follows the story of, gosh, it's another coming of age story, I think. If you like Hamnet, you will love this book. Okay, wait, actually, this is more important. It's set in the late 1800s, where the dictionary is going through its second version, I believe. She is a daughter of one of the people who is writing the definitions of the words. It follows her story all throughout World War I and after, and even beyond that, it follows other people without spoiling it. I think one of the most compelling parts of it is that it explores the question of the power of words, and also who gets to decide what words mean and how language shifts. Especially, she explores how war has shifted the meaning of language, how language shifts from different class systems, how women in lower classes use different words than the men who are writing the dictionary. She explores what is her role in figuring that out. It also takes place during the suffrage movement, which is one of my favorite times to read about. My goodness, if you want it, this is one of the books that made me cry. I was definitely sobbing at the end, openly. I felt like when I was done reading it, the main character was oh, am I about to start crying? No, I'm okay. But by the end of it, I felt like the main character was such a dear friend. I feel like that's one of the higher compliments I can give. This next book messed me up. I listened to it audio again. I would probably recommend reading it though. If you like Black Mirror, if you like all the what ifs of like Brave New World or 1984, Exhalation is the book for you. It's a set of short stories that takes place in all the what ifs of the future, and every single one of them I was like, oh yeah. And it's not necessarily all doom and gloom. It's a lot of the, well, what if the world was like this? Or what if this is how things happened? I feel like each short story, I wanted a whole book on it. They stood out in my mind so much. It was so fast and fun, and oh my, like darkly compelling. The next, as I'm sure all of you could anticipate, is Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. I will say that it took me probably by book 2 to really get into it. I love the character. One of my favorite things about Sarah J. Maas is that if her main character is going to be athletic and fast, that she has to eat a lot and train a lot. As someone who is an endurance athlete, I love running in the mountains, that if I don't do that and if I don't eat a ton, like I can't do it. And that ends up being a lot of my life and a lot of what I talk about. So it makes sense that the main character would be the same for her. But I feel like if you haven't read it by now, like do it. If you like Sarah J. Maas. If you don't read it. Like it's kind of polarizing that way. Next, again, Sarah J. Maas, Crescent City. Crescent City is one of those, like, if you liked the world building, she's not a huge world builder. Like, she is not Brandon Sanderson. Let's put that out there. But if you're expecting the, like, info dump that ACOTAR gives you, it is also not that. Crescent City actually builds the world as if you're in it, where in ACOTAR, it's, I'm gonna sit you down at this dinner and tell you everything you need to know. I think one of the most fun parts about the Crescent City series is that it is a fantasy novel, but it's urban fantasy, so they can text and they have computer systems, and I haven't read anything like that before. I didn't think I would like it, but it solves a lot of problems. They can send a text message. They have indoor plumbing. It's in my top one because I couldn't put it down. Crescent City and A House of Breath were two of the books that once I got to the 3/4 point, I wasn't going to sleep. I literally had to keep reading them. And if a book can make me do that, if your story is that compelling, like top 10, easy. These next three are memoirs, and I guess I really like them. The first one follows the story of a woman who is trying to figure out her relationship with complex PTSD from her childhood, which is normally why it's complex. And she's really, like, brutally honest about herself. She takes a lot of ownership for her own faults, which, if you struggle with PTSD, it can be very easy to just feel like a victim, but her self-awareness throughout the book is incredibly insightful. She documents her struggle with finding a therapist that understands even what CPTSD is, and then eventually she finds one and is able to record the therapy sessions and share them publicly because she is part of, I believe it's NPR. I have never seen a better depiction of what CPTSD is and how it affects your life and just how complicated it is to try to figure out how to deal with in your everyday life. Definitely recommend and highly recommend listening because she is a podcaster. It's just a very natural format to listen to her story. Again, I feel like this is a book that everyone has talked about this year. I listened to it. I feel like memoirs, listening to them, it just feels so much more personal, especially most of the time it's the author narrating it. So when it is the author, oh my goodness, they know what they want to say and how they want to say it. So listening to it feels like a conversation, like therapy. I don't know. I love it. I listened to Crying in H Mart probably in a day. The way she described her relationship with her mother and food, and even hearing the Korean pronounced and going between, like, the Korean words and the English. I don't remember much about the plot. I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna read a summary because I feel like this needs to be a little more in depth. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, wow. I love books that explore identity, and this definitely does a deep dive into what does it mean to be who you are, even when you have a complicated relationship with the people that gave you those parts. It was so profoundly vulnerable, and the story of her growth from A to the end is so real. Like, it's not extreme. Like, she's still a human. It's not that ideal growth, which I have seen a lot of people have issues with, that, like, oh, it's promoting XYZ. It's not promoting, it's just her life, it's her story. The final book, again, no particular order. It was one of my most anticipated books of the year because I have been following this author on social media since like 2016, 2017. I was so excited to see the memoir of what I had literally watched unfold. It is Nowhere for Very Long by Brianna Madia. I have never heard someone describe van life and the need to travel and explore and adventure better than her. It put words to feelings that I was living through and had experienced in choosing to do van life in the most tangible ways that I didn't even know were possible. I'll read a quote to you. Oh my god. So she's talking about her decision to move into a van. But if the potential of a mortgage had felt like dipping our toe into the big, daunting pool of life, then buying this van would be like careening off the high dive. And yet, bizarrely enough, that felt safer. Oh my goodness. The book is less about life on the road than it is about, again, finding yourself, dealing with grief, dealing with change in relationships, dealing with change in yourself, and really, what does it mean to push yourself outside of your comfort zone consistently? That is all. Those are my top 12 books for this year. I can't wait to share 2023 with you. If you read any of those books, please tell me what you thought of them in the comments down below. And I would love to hear what your top books were this year, and if we had any similar ones, I want to know. I will be posting way more in January, so make sure you subscribe so we can be better friends and you can keep up to date with everything going on. I also post pretty consistently on TikTok, so you can follow me there. And I post random life stuff on Instagram, so if you want to check that out, that's where that is. See ya!